So Jon Jones has just beaten Stipe Miocic in the main event of UFC 309. At the end of round 3, he knocked out Stipe with a spinning back kick to the body. It was a great finish, but overall it was a bit of a pointless fight, because there were at least 5 more deserving heavyweight contenders for Jones to face. And I thought Jones and Stipe, especially Stipe, looked very slow and sluggish in their fight. And that's why, as I always do, I'm going to go through all the potential opponents for Jon Jones in the future and rank them based on their chances of beating him. Leave a like on the video because our first opponent is going to be Alex Pereira. Alex Pereira will go in low chance. One thing that some people seem to be forgetting about Pereira is that he still hasn't fought a real grappler in the UFC. In his debut, he got controlled for a full round by Adesanya Michailidis, but then at the very start of round 2, he'd knock him out with a flying knee. Obviously, Alex is dangerous on the feet, but Jones will not stay on the feet at all. We saw how easily Jones took down Stipe, and Stipe is quite a good wrestler himself. Alex would be lost on the ground versus Jones, and he'd get stopped in the first round, either submission or ground and pound TKO. But there is a teeny chance that Alex clips him at the start of one of the rounds. We move on to the next opponent, Ciryl Adesanya. Some of you might remember this was a fight that people were talking about for a long time. Back when Jones was still at light heavyweight and Ciryl Adesanya was the middleweight champion. Back then he would be submitted by Jones, and now he'd still be submitted by Jones because Jones is now a heavyweight. Ciryl Adesanya has been taken down by many opponents across his career. He's had his back taken by Marvin Vettori, of all people. It would be the same as the Pereira fight. We move on to our next opponent, which is Magomed Ankalaev. What Ankalaev has that Adesanya and Pereira don't have is wrestling. He can offensively and defensively wrestle at the same time. He's also very dangerous and very technical on the feet, very versatile, he uses kicks, uses boxing. There are some weaknesses that Jones could exploit, like the leg kicks, or Ankalaev's lack of jiu-jitsu or submission ability. Obviously, Jones being Jones would find a way to win, but out of everyone at light heavyweight at the moment, I think Ankalaev has the best skill set to beat Jones, and that's why I've put him at decent chance. We move on to an opponent that Jon Jones is very familiar with, Jessie Moses, also known as Jon Jones's fiancée. They never fought each other in the UFC, but the stories we've heard about these two in sparring, it's pretty obvious that Jon Jones gets the better of her every single time. Jones, after all, is the more superior fighter. I can imagine a lot of Jones's successful techniques working against Moses. Elbows in the clinch, oblique kicks, flying knees, head kicks. I think Jones is just more versatile on the feet, and that's why Moses is down there. We move on to another opponent that Jones has fought before, Ciryl Gane. Considering how the first fight went, most people would put Gane at the bottom next to Jones's fiancée. But Gane is one of those athletes where if he commits to something, he could probably achieve it. We saw after the Jones loss, he worked on his takedown defence and it was on display versus Sergei Pavlovich in his last fight, and Spivak did not come close to getting a single takedown. Gane being a great striker, if he had really good takedown defence, that'd make him a real force. To be clear, Jones would still submit him again in a rematch, but he could do decently well if he can stuff a few takedowns. We move on to the first most really interesting opponent, Francis Ngannou, who's going in 50-50. I do find it difficult to really pick a side in this matchup, and Ngannou has maybe the heaviest hands in UFC history. Jones looks very slow on the feet nowadays, and Ngannou's wrestling both offensively and defensively has been looking good recently. He's got more patient and technical striking compared to how he used to be, but at the same time, Ngannou's cardio's never been great. He always seems to slow down after the second round. Jones has never seemed to really slow down in a fight ever. He has been taken down before, it's not impossible to take him down. So there's a case you can make for either side. My opinion on who wins seems to change all the time, so I'm just going to leave it there in 50-50. Our next opponent is going to be Alexander Volkov. If Volkov ends up beating Ciryl Gane, this is a potential fight, and I think he's got a deceptively good chance at winning. Jones always seems to struggle against people his size or taller. It doesn't get taller than Volkov, so in the striking, I think Jones would lose. But at the same time, he can be taken down. He's a bit useless off his back. So Jones would sub him realistically, but for however long the fight's on the feet, I think Volkov would surprise people. We move on to someone that Volkov has just beaten, Sergei Pavlovich. He's a bit similar to Volkov in the way that he's only dangerous on the feet. It's easy to forget just how scary Pavlovich looked on his way up. He was tearing through top 10 opponents in about 30 seconds each. The reason he's above Alex Pereira on this list is simply because he lets his hands go a bit more. Because I can see Pereira, if he fought Jones, just being a bit more technical, a bit more patient, like throws one left hook at a time. Whereas Pavlovich would just start throwing crazy bombs as soon as he sees Jones. Jones was looking sluggish and was getting caught on the chin by Stipe a few times, so it is entirely possible. But obviously Pavlovich, his biggest weakness is the wrestling. He would probably get tripped and then taken down and submitted or ground and pounded to a finish. We move on to our final opponent, the big one, the most important one on the list. Tom Aspinall will beat Jon Jones if they were to fight. Aspinall's maybe the most impressive heavyweight, maybe the most impressive athlete in the whole UFC at the moment. He's got crazy power in his hands. He moves really light on his feet. He's got great wrestling, great striking, great defense, great head movement. He's got great submission ability, great finishing ability. He's got great shot selection. And I'm genuinely confused by people picking Jon Jones here. Obviously the case would be, what if Jones takes him down? What if he's rubbish off his back? What if he starts to slow down later on? We haven't seen Tom Aspinall in a third round ever. But just look at how slow and sluggish Jones looks on the feet and compare it to how fast Aspinall was. It's a genuine night and day difference. Jones seems to have lost all that fast twitch muscle he used to have at light heavyweight. Maybe it's because he's not on steroids anymore, who knows. But I am convinced Aspinall's very good on the ground. He's way too quick for Jon. I think he'll just put him out in the first round, honestly. So that's my tier list. Like and subscribe. Leave a comment. Goodbye.